So, I just watched the Fnaf movie and spoiler alert, okay? I'm not gonna do a spoiler-free review because I watched Moist Critical do it and he said in the video it's hard to explain his opinions on it without going into a spoiler territory, and I don't want to deal with that, right? So, let's get into it. First of all, let's go over the plot. Basically, there's a kid named Mike, right? And he's at like a picnic with like his family, right? And his brother's playing near them, right? But then the mother drops her Coke. So she has to go and get napkins, and she tells her son to watch him. To watch his younger brother. So when he's going there, he realizes that somebody took his older brother, and he sees him driving away in another car. In a car, right? And then we learn that Mike has been using something called the dream theory, where like he plays a specific audio, takes sleeping pills, so then that way he can relive that moment, because he thinks that somewhere in his mind or subconscious he saw he saw the guy, or at least has more clues about the guy who took his brother, but his mind is suppressing it, right? And I feel like it was kind of used to, like, hint at MatPat, right? It says the dream theory, and if you don't know, around FNAF 4, MatPat theorized that the whole FNAF franchise was just a dream, right? And spoiler alert, MatPat does make a cameo, and his name tag is Ness, and that's from his series stating that Sans was Ness, right? So, yeah, right? And he has this daughter or niece, Abby, right? And then he has a babysitter, right? But then on the third night, right? And, oh, yeah, the reason he got the job is because his aunt wants custody, and the reason is because she wants government checks from the government for having Abby, right? So she's trying to take Mike to court, so in order to look better, Mike takes the job, right? Right, so, right? The first night, nothing really happens, same thing with the second night. But then at the second night, a guard comes in, right? And then, since I think Mike thinks that nothing's gonna happen, he dreams and uses the audio to go in there. But then he later states in the movie that his dreams are clearer at the restaurant, right? And then he gets attacked by a kid who's wearing like a fox hook, and it makes him bleed. And he hits him with a hook, and it causes him to bleed. And then when he wakes up, he's bleeding, right? And spoiler alert: the security guard is the security guard Vanessa is William Afton's daughter, right? Her job is to keep Mike in the dark and to tell Afton if he starts to know too much, right? And she's just like, oh yeah, right. And then in the third night, Mike can't find Abby a babysitter, so she has to come with him, right? And then he goes back to sleep at the dream. Oh yeah, no, on the second night, in an effort to, get him fired, the aunt hires people to break in, right? And the animatronics attack and kill him, and I guess they clean up the mess, and then they hide the body, right? And then the animatronics start playing with Abby, right? And then they build a pillow for it, right? And then right, but then they find a right? Abby's like, oh, it's gonna rain, and Vanessa's like, oh, we're gonna need a roof on our pillow fort then, I'll go find them. And then Mike comes along, and then he sees a spring lock suit, and Vanessa's like, oh, I wouldn't touch that. And then she takes a broomstick, takes the end of it and puts it in there, and then the spring locks activate and destroy the stick, like the stick part of the broom, right? Right, and then Mike gets mad at her because she's like, why didn't you tell me this, right? What if Abby came in here and then she touched her, she could have gone killed or hurt. And then she gets mad and she tells him never to bring Abby here again, or else she'll be shot at. Right. So the next night, he leaves Abby home. But the aunt comes over to, try and talk it out. So she's basically the babysitter. And when he's in the dream, they make a deal saying that he can have a dream every night with his family again, as long as they get Abby. But then he realizes it's a mistake. But then the animatronics murder. But then Freddy comes in and then he murders the babysitter, the aunt, right? And they take Abby, right? She comes along and they go to a taxi, and the taxi driver is Corey Extension, right? Right? And then they go there to the pizzeria, right? Right? And then when he wakes up, the animatronics kidnap him, and then they put him in a spring-like costume that saws that are gonna kill him. He manages to break out of the suit and get out, but Foxy attacks him. Luckily, Vanessa was coming over, and then she found him, and then healed him, and then he taught him how to beat them. But then it was like, oh yeah, 5 kids went missing at Freddy's, right? They searched the place top to bottom, but they never found them, and that's because the guy who killed them was smart. And he knew that the police were gonna come, so he hid them in the place where they would never expect, in the costumes, in the robots, in the animatronics, right? So it's just not their souls, but also their bodies that are in the suit, right? So, yeah, right, and she's like, oh, I can't go there because if my dad spots me, then I'm dead. So he goes there, right, he manages to use tasers to temporarily stop Freddy and Bonnie. He manages to distract Chica long enough for Abby to escape, right? Like, Chico's gonna put her in a spring lock suit, but Chico's distracted long enough by Mike for her to escape, and she gets tased. Same thing with the cupcake. But then when she escapes, Foxy is still let out, right? Right? So when she's trying to get out of there, she's being hunted by Foxy. And then when Mike finally goes into the main part of the diner, William Afton in his spring-lock suit appears, right? But then Mike tells, right? But then Foxy's about to kill Abby. But then Vanessa comes in and then teases Foxy, right? She shoots Springtrap, and then Mike tells Abby that the only way for the animatronics to be on the right side is if you drew a drawing and then showed them what actually happened. And then she goes on a piece of the wall that has a drawing of William Afton in the spring Bonnie costume being friends with the kids, and replaces it with him murdering them, which finally exposes the truth. And then they turn on him and they activate the spring locks in his suit, and then and then they take him to the storage closet. But then Vanessa was stabbed by William, so she's taken into a hospital and is put into a coma, right? That's basically the movie. Now, I do have some questions. First of all, how were the bodies never found? right? Like we see in the movie that there's a little bit of blood left, right? Right? And I'm assuming that if they couldn't even fully clean a crime scene, they couldn't fully clean somebody being snapped in half by Freddy's jaw, right? 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 How would the police not called? If people broke in, why weren't the police called? I would have to assume that the police were called, but then William told them to stop investigating, right? After the whole movie, how is Mike not in trouble, right? Like, the person who's trying to get custody of Abby is dead in his house while he was mysteriously gone and Abby was in a room, right? Right? Unless you're telling me he cleaned the body up, which, I mean, is a crime, right? Like, that's an accessory to a murder, right? I mean, it could go both ways because, hey, if you tell the police, they're gonna believe you're crazy, right? Even if the daughter's like, oh yeah, he's right, the police will just chalk it up to a daughter trying to protect her father, and, or like a niece trying to protect, I don't know, man. But, right? Also, it didn't even look like the aunt needed the money because she looked pretty financially stable. Like, she was willing to pay $1,000 to like fake a break-in. But then at that point, if you're spending money right, and I'm pretty sure that government money for owning Abby isn't even that much. So I think by the time the lawsuit was finished, right, by the time she paid them, it wouldn't have even been worth it. And so it's not like she needed the money, so. Right, and also after the whole incident happened, where did the bodies go? Right? 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 Why did Vanessa switch up so fast? She was having fun, like kicking her feet up in the air with Mike and Abby. But then as soon as Mike is like, hey, there's a spring lock suit here. It's unsafe. Why didn't you tell me about this? She's like, oh, if you bring her back, I'm gonna shoot you. I'm gonna shoot you. Ah. Right? Which is just a complete 180. Right? I guess you could say she was overwhelmed by having to manage being Mike's friend while also being like a double agent, right? But I'm pretty sure it's not that much pressure to blow up like that, right? I'm pretty sure William says that he killed his brother, but like, for all Mike could know, that's just teasing him, right? Right? It could just be the villain trying to make, just trying to, like, look even better, being like, oh, I killed your brother, and now I get to kill you, you're so weak, right? There's, like, no proof that you did it. The whole, oh, you need to show them the truth, right? I mean, it is stated early in the movie that, hey, the animatronics can only really communicate through drawings, right? But I'm pretty sure they would, right? Right? I guess they should have just gone into more detail about it, like even a little bit, right? They should have explained that, oh, hey, when they were killed and stuffed in the suit and they possessed them, they didn't have any memories of their previous lives. But if that's true, then when Abby put up the drawing, why did they believe her, right? For all they know, they could have just been lying to survive, right? Right, and if you're telling me that for some reason when they died and their memories were erased, they would follow William, but then when the truth is exposed, it would suddenly open up for them and they would remember that, which is just a stretch, right? Right? Right. But yeah, Markiplier was supposed to be in the movie. Like, there's a video Map has showed of him being in, like, a closet room at Blumhouse, and it showed that the security guard, the janitor guy being killed in the first scene was supposed to be Markiplier, but he's making his own movie, right? right? So he couldn't be in it, right? But there's just plot was like, why did Vanny all of a sudden switch up, right? Right, right. Why did she go from kicking her feet in the air to just saying, I'm gonna shoot you if you bring her back here? Just because Mike complained that there was a dangerous springlock costume, right? By the end, they should have went into more explanation on how, the whole drawing situation worked. They should have also explained why they killed those people who broke in, but then they didn't kill Abby. If you're assuming that, oh, it's because she's a kid, and they're a kid too, then why didn't they kill Mike? And if you're saying, oh, they didn't kill Mike because Abby said that oh, it's my brother or step or whatever, then that means they can't communicate through drawings. So the whole drawing thing would have been pointless. Unless you're telling me they're very limited in like human language, right? They should have just explained it a little more, right? And want to know what I would have loved? If in the final scene their eyes went black. In the Fnaf series, when the animatronics have red eyes, it usually means someone's controlling them, right? And usually the black eyes mean they're angry. So when the truth should have finally realized, it should have cut to him being like, it should have cut to him, right? Like it should have cut to him like a close-up of Springtrap saying, oh, I built you. And then when we looked back, their eyes were like pitch black with a white dot. Or like their eyes went back and then slowly turned black and then had a dot to show how angry they were, right? There should have been a little bit more blood in the Springtrap scene, right? Like, I don't know how they got away with it, but they showed more blood than a PG-13 movie is usually allowed to do, right? Right, like when Mike escapes the Springtrap or the Saw Trap or whatever, the spinning blade trap, I think you see blood on their bodies, right? When Rob is locked into a room with Bonnie, you see his blood, right? Right, you see blood on the door, right? Right? So, yeah, but like, right? So, I mean, if they showed a little bit more blood, right? Like, it's, right? Like, wanna know what they should do? They should make an R-rated version of the Fnaf movie. After the original Fnaf movie's released, they released a second version, which is scarier. Like in the second version, in the final moments, when they realized the truth, their eyes turned black with a white dot. All the animatronics, even Cupcake. When he got springlocked, when William Afton got springlocked, they should have shown more blood and maybe a couple organs. In this version, maybe we could have seen we actually could have seen what actually happened when Freddy actually bit down. Like we see all the blood and gore and stuff, right? Right, so then that way, hey, if you're a kid and want to watch a FNAF movie, we have that, right? If you're a kid and you want to watch the FNAF movie, we have that. But if you're looking for something more intense, we also have that, right? Right? So in my opinion, I feel like Blumhouse should have taken a little more time on it. It's a good movie, right? If you're a FNAF fan, you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed it. It was good because I'm a FNAF fan. But if you're someone new or someone who doesn't know a lot about the franchise, there's much left to be designed, right? And that's also a good and a positive, right? Because the movie's for the fans. They said that the movie's going to be for the fans, and it's true, right? But also at the same time, it's kind of not enough, right? Like it felt like sometimes the movie just came to a crawl, right? Because there wasn't that much going on, right? Right? Um, and also one thing I really didn't really like was that the whole cameo thing with the employee of the month. There's like a picture of all the employees of the month, and it's a picture of a bunch of YouTubers, but you don't really get to see it in the final movie that much. You only really get to see it in the trailer, so. Right? Um, yeah, right? You just feel like there should have been a little bit more blood and gore, and if they still wanted that PG-13 rating, they should have released a version that, they should release a version that is bloodier, has those black eyes at the end, right? 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 And before I saw the movie, I was like, oh, I was on TikTok and people complaining about the pillow fort scene, and I was like, oh no, the predictions came true. Next thing you know, Freddy's gonna snip on a banana peel and then fall over, and he's gonna be like, oh, that's gonna hurt in the morning, right? With his hand behind his back like this, right? But if you actually watch them, oh yeah, but in the context of the movie, it kind of makes sense. Like maybe William's controlling them to gain Vanessa, to gain Mike's trust, right? Right. And also, one thing I don't get is how they're so powered, right? Unless you're telling me that their souls can power them, right? Which means souls could be used as a power of energy. Right, and I don't think that's really, I mean, maybe it's in the books, but they should have explained that more, right? So, if you're a FNAF fan, you're gonna love it. I loved it. But if you used to be in FNAF, but then really just didn't pay attention to the new stuff, or you don't really know that much about FNAF, it's a good movie, right? 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 But one thing I didn't like was the lack of jump scares, right? I think in the FNAF movie, they try to take the positive feedback, right? People are complaining that FNAF isn't scary and he uses jump scares, but they should just make an atmosphere that's naturally horrifying, right? But I feel like it's counterproductive, right? Because you know that the animatronics can be anywhere, and they can jump scare you at any time, which really helps that atmosphere. But I feel like they should have leaned into both of it, right? 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 I really felt like there should have been more time used for Mike figuring it out, him being in the office and then watching the cameras, being like, "Oh, what the hell's going on?" and then him slowly figuring it out, and then like but then he gets stumped, and then around that time Vanessa would arrive, right, right, and I wish so, right. Right? So then that, right? And then the animatronics would be gone, right? You would hear random noises, right? Right? And then, like, Foxy would run up and then, punch Mike, and then when Mike would look, Foxy would be gone, right? Right? Like, Bonnie would try and attack him with an electrical pipe, right? Right? Right. Right, and like maybe Freddy would have attacked him with an axe, right? But then that axe gets stuck into an arcade machine, and later in the movie, when the animatronics betray William, he grabs the axe and manages to take it out, and he does a total on it. He like breaks Bonnie's face. He breaks both of Chica's arms, right? Right, and he gives them that withered look, right? Like he makes them look like the withered animatronics, right? Right, but then this just helps the spirits get more control, right? Right, but this doesn't stop the spirits at all. It actually helps them because it like makes them less contained, right? Right, right? Right? And I don't know where they're gonna go next. If they're going with the FNAF 2 route, then yeah, go for it. But like, okay, here's the FNAF 2 story idea, real quick, right? So after Freddy collapses in itself, and it gets talked on the news again, a couple investors realize that this could be a good chance to reignite the Freddy's brand. So they managed to buy it. They managed to buy most of the stocks of it from the new owner, who doesn't really want to restart it. No, FNAF 2 fun. After William dies as the new owner and he doesn't want to reignite the flame, then after the building crumbled in on itself and Freddy's is on the news again, investors want to buy the building, so they do, right? But they realize that the place is too far gone and that even if they did manage to bring it back, it's way too small. So they start building a second place called Freddy Fazbear's Juniors. And they make sure those murders never happen again. They make like robots with like Face ID sensors, right, and child tracking. And the lead of the project is a guy named Henry, right, right, and right, right, and they use some parts from the old building to save money, and this makes the storage room where Springtrap is in a lot weaker and a lot easier to break out of, right, 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 and the spirits are torturing Springtrap, but they don't want to be found, like they don't want people to know about this, or like because then Springtrap could permanently be killed forever. They wouldn't be able to torture him. So when they arrive, they go back into their costumes and they pretend like they're broken, right? And then when the investors come, they see all these animatronics and they're like, "Oh, let's go, let's just grab them." And they grab them, right? Um, and then by the time they go back into the room again, by the time they want to go into the room again to see if there's anything else they can use, the building's complete, so they just like leave it. And then they take a lot of those parts from the original animatronics and use them to build the new toy ones, which gives them that even more withery look, right? Right? And then seeing this, Mike wants to make sure that no more kids get murdered again. So he takes a job there, right? And then after the first couple nights, nothing really happens. But then he keeps on getting dreams, right? That Springtrap is going to return. Right? He's like, "Oh, my name's..." And right, he's like, "I always come back." He like stabs, and he tries to stab him, just tries to stab Mike. And then one time when it's raining and it's lightning outside, he's tidying up the place, and then when lightning strikes, he thinks he sees a silhouette of a Bonnie animatronic, and then he checks, but Bonnie is still there. He checks like the security cameras, and Bonnie never moved. So he actually starts getting worried that somehow Springtrap survived, right? Right? But then he also sees that around 6 a.m. all the security cameras go offline, and then they come back around like 6:30 a.m. That's when they come back online, right? So he decides to stay, and then he sees the withered animatronics leaving and going back to the original pizzeria to torture Springtrap, right? Right. So he decides then. So right, and he sees them leaving, and he's like, "Oh, they must be going there to torture Springtrap." So he goes there, and then he finds that he's missing. And then they show up, right, and they have like this withery voice, and they're like, "Oh, where is he?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I saw that around like 6, the security cameras would go offline." And so I stayed a little longer, and I saw you guys leaving, and I knew you wanted to torture Springtrap. So I went here to make sure he was still here, and he was just gone. And he's like, "I heard that the new owners used a lot of the material from the old building to build a new one, so it probably made the storage room a lot easier to get out of, right? Right, and then he attacks the animatronics with like an electrified axe, and it temporarily um you know passes them out, and then he traps a mic into the wall, right, and then he locks the animatronics in a room, and then he waits until it's 6 a.m., right, and then he finds Henry's daughter Charlie, right, and then he does it, right, he kills her, the puppet animatronic melds with her, right, and then he murders even more kids, right? Right? But he knows that if the animatronics see a dead body, they'll call the authorities, right? Right? So he hides the bodies in a nearby building. And then he waits until it's after hours, and then he cuts the power off. So then that way the toy animatronics can't charge, and then when they're out of battery, he puts their bodies in there, right? And he says this time it's not going to be permanent. As soon as the police investigation is over, I'm going to take them out so the souls can't finish bonding, right? But then Mike breaks out, and then when William's about to leave, he attacks him with an axe to the back, and then the rest of the animatronics like jump him, and they start beating him up. But then when Bonnie and Chica try and attack, he grabs both of their heads, and then he smashes them into the wall, right? And then he takes their weapons, and then while Foxy's running at him, he like uses it as guard like this, and then Foxy's like, oh, and he's trying to bite him, right? But then he breaks the stick part of the axe, and it's like he breaks it, and then he shoves it into Foxy's eyes, and then he takes out his knife, and then he just starts battling with Freddy, right? He dodges, right, and then he stabs Freddy in the leg, and then uppercuts him, and then he punches him in the nose, and it makes like a the boop noise, and then Freddy goes tumbling on the floor, and then Mike has to run away from Springtrap, right, and then he manages to escape, and he realizes that the only one who knows what William is gonna do is his daughter. So he goes back into the dreamland, and he tries to wake her up, right? And then like they build a bond where like Vanessa can see what's happening to Mike, right? In like her own dream world. And then when Springtrap's about to attack him, and then the next time Springtrap's attacking him, she manages to wake up. She grabs her gun, and then she runs, right, into her car, right, and then she runs there, and then like 7 minutes later, when William's about to kill Mike, he gets shot multiple times in the head, and then he goes down, right, and then they decide that to finally make sure that this place is burnt, they build a bunch of TNT sticks, and then they put it in on Springtrap. They put gasoline all over the place, and then they light multiple matches and get out of there, right? And then in a post-credit scene, we can see that for some reason, where William isn't where it blows up. We see that when the pizzeria catches on fire, it's the main stage that blows up instead of where Springtrap actually was. So then that way it can clue audiences that Springtrap managed to take the TNT off of him fast enough and throw it off. Right? And then in the final shot where we see Freddy's burning, there can be a little silhouette seen on the roof. It's like make it hard to see, but like a silhouette on top of the roof, right? To show that maybe like he threw the TNT at the main stage. When it blew up, he used the wreckage coming from the roof to climb out. Then he was looking at, and then he was looking, and then he was just like trying to figure out a way to get down, and he was just like staring there, right? Right, and then what we can see is that the place goes unstable, and then he falls into the foundation of the building, right? But luckily he gets caught by a bunch of wood bars, right? But he's heavily damaged, right? But then we see the animatronics rise up from where they would be and crawl back into the fire. And then we can see them trying to kill Springtrap. But instead, Springtrap manages to battle all of them. And he pushes all of them into the cement. Onto the cement. Right? And they're still alive, obviously. But then he takes a hammer and he goes down there and he starts breaking the concrete, right? And then he goes into the building and he takes one of the pipes and he breaks them, and a bunch of water goes into the foundation, like rehydrating it. And then those animatronics go into there, right? Go in there, and then eventually the water stops. But he uses this to take the fire off of him, so to, get less damage. He gets covered in water and he gets out of there. But it's harder for him to do because that reactivated the spring locks. Because he found out that on the back of the suit there's like a windy thing that he can use to unwind the spring locks, right? So this can set up from that, right? And then we can see that when the spring locks activate again, William falls back onto the plywood, right? And then the firefighters come to extinguish the building, right? And then they find Springtrap, right? But then he attacks those firefighters and he kills them, right? And he's about to get out, but then the last firefighter barricades the door with like a bunch of gravel, right, and concrete, so it's impossible for William to get out, right? He kills the last firefighter, right, but then he falls back onto the ground because he's weak, right? And then we see like his white lights in his like eyeballs fade out, but then we see that this one, which is supposedly gone, blinks once before quickly going back, showing that he's still alive, right? So like that way consider for FNAF 3, like, but like that's just a theory. I'm sorry that this turned into a whole sequel pitch idea, but if you really want to know my thoughts on the FNAF movie, it could have had better writing a little bit. They should have spent a little bit more time on it to fix some of those plot holes, right? They should have gone with more jump scares, right? And they should have also gone more into the tough and scary atmosphere, and they should have also like made the animatronics eyeballs turn to black with a white dot at the final fight to show how angry they were at William, right? They should have said that maybe. What else they should have done was that the body that they killed, the aunt that they killed, they like Freddy took the body and then he put it in himself, right? And then and then Mike just cleaned it up, right? So yeah, but yeah, so in my opinion, if Blumhouse spent a little bit more time on the movie, they could have included more jump scares. They could have included more jump scares, made the atmosphere better and more scary. And if they spent more time, they could have fixed some of the plot holes in the movie. But on a FNAF rating scale, I'm gonna give it an 8.5, and the max I'll go is 8.8, maybe 8.9. Right, just because as a FNAF fan, waiting practically my entire life for this project, right, and seeing it finally happen after studio changes, script rewrites, and all of that, it's just amazing, right? And sure, it's not the best adaptation, but it's still a really good one, right? So I would have to say I'm excited for the sequel. I'll watch it, but they could improve. But they could take some lessons of the first movie and use it to fix the second movie and like make it better. So that's my review.